I'm Derrick Jackson, and I'm with the Atlanta Voice. So when you think about Lieutenant Governor's position, you have to think about a couple of things. One, experience. I bring a wealth of experience, over 3 decades of fighting for democracy, civil rights, voting rights, women's rights. And so the second thing is capability. I get things done. And when you think about my track record and my resume, I am a viable candidate to become the next Lieutenant Governor in Georgia.
Perfect. You've served in the State House of Representatives, so can you tell me about your time at the Capitol and what leadership experience you bring to the table?
So my 6 years I've been under the Gold Dome, the Georgia General Assembly, I had the opportunity to serve and continue to serve as the vice chair of the largest black caucus in the nation, Georgia Legislator Black Caucus. And I'm also the vice chair of the Fulton County delegation. And the reason why that's important is because when you think about leadership, the nearly 900 to 1,200 pieces of legislation that we deal with during a session, you have to have leadership that's on the forefront of negotiating or debating or advocating for those things that we need in Georgia for working families, women's health, civil rights, voting rights that we continue to champion. And so these last 6 years, I found myself in the middle of this legislative process, and that's what gives me the experience to become the next Lieutenant Governor.
How has your military experience prepared you for your life and career in politics?
During my 22 years in the Navy, as a retired naval officer, I realized that we all need to be unified to get the mission done. Throughout my course in the Navy, I've been on 7 deployments, 4 combat missions, and 2 special operations. And I didn't care if my sailors came from Wisconsin, South Dakota, or California. I look at their strengths and their capabilities to get the job done. And so that skill set, as a retired military officer, now I bring it to the Georgia General Assembly. And as a state legislator, I was successful in negotiating and getting bills, even as a minority, getting bills accomplished through this legislative process. And those same skill sets I'll be able to do as Lieutenant Governor.
What does "where everyone has full access to the American dream" mean to you?
You know, when I think about the American dream, it could be a number of things for anyone. As I crisscross Georgia, all 159 counties, the American dream is defined differently for Black, brown communities versus Asian, Pacific. And so we need to make sure that we have a Georgia that, one, will create a quality life for everyone, meet families where they are. Small businesses, for example, should be thriving in Georgia. And so if you are an entrepreneur and you have a small business, the federal government did their part, but the state did not. And so we need to make sure whatever that American dream is for that individual or that family, from small business to healthcare, we got to meet citizens where they are. And I'll be a Lieutenant Governor to make sure that we create an environment that's conducive for them to say, I live in Georgia.
When I say voter suppression, how do you feel about that?
I'm strongly for voting rights. Listen, my ancestors, our ancestors could not vote. And so when you think about where we are today and where our ancestors were 400 years ago, part of our democracy is having the ability to vote. And so when someone, government in particular, is trying to marginalize or restrict or limit our access to the ballot box, I strongly oppose that. Senate Bill 202, for example, I was one of the leaders under the Gold Dome that spoke against Senate Bill 202. They used words like security and integrity, and that bill was far from both of those words. When you start talking about reducing the number of drop boxes, removing the role and responsibility of the Secretary of State, that's going to hurt and harm Black and brown communities. And so I would be a Lieutenant Governor to make sure that any anti-voting bill will not become law in the state of Georgia.
Is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about you and your campaign for Lieutenant Governor of Georgia?
I've discovered as I crisscross Georgia, the number one complaint from citizens is that our government is too much finger pointing, too much us versus them, white versus black, Democrat versus Republican, essential versus non-essential. In order for Georgia to survive, we have to be unified. And that's one of the things I discovered when I was in the United States Navy, that you have to be in this as one in order to successfully to achieve the mission. And if Georgia continue to be the number one state to do business, we have to be unified. We can't leave small businesses behind. We can't leave counties behind. We can't leave cities behind. This is not just about white or black. This is not about Republican, Democrat. This is about Georgia and making sure that we have a state where everybody's dream can be fulfilled. When you go to derrickjackson.org, you'll see that I have 8 priorities. One of those priorities is around healthcare. During this pandemic, which we are still in, we watched over 37,000 Georgians, unfortunately, die to COVID. There was no reason for them to die. We need to expand Medicaid. We need to do more around women's health and children's health. There's no reason why we're ranked number 45 in healthcare and 47 for women's health. And so we have to be a state that's going to show up for our citizens. We got to meet families where they are. And I will be that lieutenant governor to make sure all 159 counties will get the health care that they need. Your quality of your health care should not be based on the proximity to Atlanta. Your job opportunity should not be based on the proximity to Atlanta. Your education should not be based on your zip code. Urban, suburban, and rural need to have the same level of resources throughout all of Georgia. And I'll be that lieutenant governor to make sure that all 159 counties will be heard and not left behind.
Can you tell us how can people find you online and support your campaign?
You can go to derrickjackson.org, and I'm on every social media platform, Instagram, Facebook. I think I'm on TikTok too. But you go to Jackson for Georgia, at Jackson for Georgia, and you can find me there. And you can also go to, our email is campaign@derrickjackson.org.